Okay.
So we have 1 minute. So we give it 1 minute before you start, just so our kids to go away if you can. It's down to the wire, huh? Just moving. Go. Maybe do this. This. So you do the arrows side to side, so we can see it. Look around. You 10 yet?
You guys, I think I saw it here this time.
We have 10 o'clock. You know, 10 o'clock. I'm sorry, 9. Yeah, 9. 9:01. Okay.
All right.
I'm going to introduce you. Are you okay?
I can introduce.
Okay.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, we should open this.
All right. I'm Harloe, and the panel I will be running today is Let's Not Forget the Past, the History of Fashion Dolls. Now, the history of fashion dolls goes back surprisingly far in time, and it starts in actually 1336. Now, the first ever doll to ever be made just to display fashion was in 1336. It was a gift from the French court to the English court, and it was a life-size mannequin, probably more of the first mannequin than the first doll. And its purpose was to be given to the queen to display the fashions that the French had to offer. Now, the idea of using dolls or using a representation of a human to display fashion got very popular. And by 1642, almost every tailor was using these things called pandoras, which were essentially miniature mannequins. Pandoras, they were used to advertise the products that a tailor had to offer. It was kind of hard. You couldn't really walk into a clothing store in the 1600s and like take off your clothes and put a new outfit on. So the Pandoras were representations of what the clothes would look like on you, except it was on the little mini doll. Now these dolls became essential, and during many wars, the only object, the only thing that was transported from country to country that was left unharmed by the warring countries were the Pandoras. They were like one of the only things that made it through the battles. But of course, these Pandoras were not toys. They were stationary. They were made completely out of wood. They just stood there. And the clothes that they wore were made out of the same materials that the actual clothing was made out of. So it was very expensive materials like silk, gold. The doll's hair was made out of real human hair. So they were not toys. They were not for kids to play with. Now by the excuse me. Yeah, I can keep talking. By the early 1770s, the fashion magazines, or fashion journals as they called them, due to the printing press, were getting very popular. And the Pandoras fell out of use because now people could just look at a picture in a magazine and they didn't have to have a physical representation to see what the clothes might look like on them. But the dolls, the idea of a small human version as a toy, that became popular around the 19th century. Of course, dolls as toys, like human representations of dolls, had existed before then, and they were made out of things like wax, wood, and paper mache. But the most popular dolls during this time were ones made of unglazed china bisque, because they looked very realistic, as people assumed. I don't think they look realistic at all. I think they're kind of scary. But these dolls were produced around 1850 by many French companies such as JemCon and Bru. China dolls were very elaborate. Part of their appeal was that they had the kind of clothes similar to the Pandoras. They wore clothes that were popular in Europe and in France at the time, but still they were made out of very expensive materials, and they were only given to, well, they could only be afforded by wealthy families, and they were given usually to the girls of the families. Now, these dolls were meant to be a representation of adult women, but as you can see, their faces and their bodies are very childlike. They look like children. And this was not a mistake. It became more and more popular for parents to give their daughters dolls to teach them like motherly duties. There were sewing patterns where girls could learn how to sew for their dolls. And they would treat them like small children, much like we see baby dolls in the store today. That's how they would treat these dolls. And the next evolution is the French bébé or the German dolly. Now, they really leaned into the baby aspect of dolls. These were produced in the early 1900s, and they were produced by German companies. They were very popular in Germany. Like, there was companies such as Armand and Sells, Simon and Holbig. And so these were very much meant to be a sort of representation of a baby for girls to play with. There's very popular collector's items, and as you can see, they're very more realistic in the face. They have more elaborate outfits. They're bigger. They're still made out of China, so they still are fragile. But as like the world wars passed by, we got new technology, and people were able to mass produce rubber, tin, celluloid, and this is when companies began producing kind of the plastic type dolls that weren't as expensive to produce and more families could afford them. But by 1940, lots of girls had caught on to the fact that these dolls were supposed to be babies. They were supposed to be babies, and you're supposed to treat them like a child. And girls were getting sick of that. But yeah. So Madame Alexander, who had produced the French bébé dolls before, they created the first ever high-heeled doll. And her name was Sissy, and she's the one in the black dress. This was in 1955. So she was the first high-heeled doll. She had a more mature body. She's kind of scary in the way she has the baby doll face, but her body is more of a mature woman. And they really brought back the fashion aspect of dolls. Sissy had a bunch of outfits you could buy for her. She was a representation of a mature lady in the 50s, and she was very high fashion. And of course, these dolls were a hit. So a bunch of companies produced similar dolls. You may be wondering why I put 4 pictures of the same doll. These are actually different companies who created their own take on the doll, which was essentially just a copy. So this is right here in the pink dress is Ideal's Little Miss Revlon. Next is Vogue Magazine's Jill. And then Horsman, who was a company that made French bébé dolls, created Cindy, which there's multiple dolls named Cindy, and they are all different. But the reason why they are called high-heel dolls is because their feet molds are always arched, so it always looks like they're standing on their tippy toes, so that they can fit into little high heels. And of course, this is where fashion dolls, as we know them, start. Many people might know that the first mass-produced or kind of small-scale fashion doll was a doll named Build Lily. Lily was based off a German comic strip of the same name, where she was it ran in the magazine Bild Zeitung, and the character Build Lily, she was supposed to be like a sexy lady who was always strutting about and stuff. So the company decided, the comic strip got very popular, so the company decided to make a doll. And she was an adult novelty toy that men would buy for their friends to kind of like prank them, like, oh, you have a sexy doll or something. Yeah, but they came in a variety of sizes. They came in 7.5 inches, 8 inches, and 11.5 inches. And they were sold with different hair colors and different outfits you could buy them. And they were not sold, they were also not a toy. They were very much considered an adult thing. They were sold at tobacco kiosks and adult toy stores. Now, as you can see, she's very similar to the first Barbies, and this is because Mattel executives Ruth and Elliot Handler, they went to Europe on a trip, excuse me, and Ruth saw Lily in the store, and she saw how many little girls wanted to play with her because she was exactly what they wanted. She was small and plastic, but she had a variety of outfits, and she looked exactly like an adult woman. So Ruth bought a Lily doll and brought her back to America, where she designed the first Barbie in 1959. And this was Barbie stock number 850, or Barbie number 1. And she released in 1959, and she was a hit, and they kept on making them. And of course, they evolved throughout the 60s, and they're still making them today, of course. But Barbie, since she was such a hit, she was not the only one. Many people tried to make their own versions of Barbie. Here is Tammy in 1962 by Ideal Toys. Pedigree Toys had Cindy in 1963. This is Lika or Rika-chan, and she was produced by Takara Toys in 1967, and she is still going today, and she is basically Barbie in Japan. Barbie is not as popular as her. But then, of course, Madame Alexander, they kind of had the title for doll producer taken away from them after they created the high heel dolls. So they tried to make their own Barbie in, I don't know what year, but they made their own doll, Brenda Starr, who's supposed to be like Barbie. Now, I don't really know if she looks like Barbie. Yeah, but they tried to make their own Barbies. Okay, so now we're in the 70s. Now Barbie's face molds became very, the original Barbie looked very vampy. She had very dark makeup, and they kind of changed that throughout the 60s and 70s. She now looks more like a younger, maybe like 18, 16 years old. And I think this is partially because Mattel and a bunch of other companies were producing celebrity face molds. They were creating celebrity dolls, and that inspired them to use variety in their Barbies. Now we're kind of we're talking about the kind of dolls I like. I prefer the kind of weird, different dolls. So here's Blythe. Blythe was created by Kenner Toys in 1972. And her gimmick is that her eyes change color based on the string that you pull. And she was bought, Kenner was bought by Hasbro in 1991. And I don't know why they did this, but they began to sell Blythe toys packaged in with Littlest Pet Shop, the 2010 debut of Littlest Pet Shop. But she looked the same. She, of course, doesn't look like the Littlest Pet Shop. So you would get these bonus packs that would have like the Littlest Pet Shop kind of bobblehead tags, and then this freaky girl. So, of course, she was not popular, and they kind of put her back in her box, pun intended. But Takara Toys, they said, hey, Hasbro, we would like to produce Blythes. And they got super popular in Japan, and they're still being produced by Good Smile Company. And they're the inspiration for Philip dolls, which are also popular in Japan as kind of art dolls that people customize. And then this is Gay Bob, the first canonically gay doll. He was made by Gizmo Development, and he was intended to be a gag doll, kind of like, because being gay is inherently funny. But he was meant as a gag doll. As you can see, his box is a closet. But the company the creator behind Gay Bob saw that actual LGBT people were buying the doll because they were excited there was a doll that represented them. So they actually began producing Gay Bob as an actual doll. He was an adult collector doll, but he was a lot more genuine than just a gag doll. Now we're in the 80s. Of course, I don't think I need to talk much about Jem. She was produced 1985 to 88 by Hasbro, and I'm sure we all know everything about Jem. Now, of course, Jem was so popular that Mattel, even with Barbie, felt so threatened that they had to create their own knockoff. And of course, we all know Barbie and the Rockers. Came out in 1986 and ran until 1987. She had 2 TV specials, which have incredible plots about Barbie going to space, traveling back in time. They're very interesting. The animation is very good, but no compliments to Barbie and the Rockers. But we all know that, maybe you don't, but the reason why Barbie lasted, they kind of knocked Gem out of the game, is because that parents didn't want to buy a lot of Gem dolls because they were different sizes of Barbies, and kids already had a bunch of Barbies, and parents didn't want to buy new clothes for the Gem dolls. They just wanted it to switch over. So Gem kind of fell off, and Barbie and the Rockers lived on, I guess. But of course, then Hasbro tried to get back in the game with Maxi Fashion in 1988 to 1990. She's kind of Gem inspired. She had her own TV show called Maxi's World that I think is partially lost. But you can kind of see the Gem inspirations in her clothes. It's very pink, very fluffy. They all came with like a little charm that you could add to your own necklace. And they all had their own gimmicks. Like, I think Liz is selling some right now. Some smelled good. I just got one whose hair grows when you pull on it. So yeah, but I don't think a lot of people know about her, but she's Gem inspired. Now we're in the 90s. In 1992, Mattel partnered up with American Greetings to create Peppermint Rose. And Peppermint Rose is, I wrote down here, it's a lot like Strawberry Shortcake, where they're smaller sized dolls and they have a candy/flower theme. And in the 90s, dolls began getting a lot more interactive. They all came with some sort of gimmick that you could really play with them. Like you wouldn't just brush them or dress them up. They came with a little activity. And Peppermint Rose came with these little water-soluble petals that when you dissolve them in water, you pour them into these little jars that they came with. You had your own exclusive Peppermint Rose perfume, and you could mix the petals. Yeah, she had her own TV special, which I also think is lost, but she did not last very long. 1992 to I think 1993, so she was not very popular, but I love her. Next, of course, we have Sky Dancers by Glue. We all know what happens to the Sky Dancers. When you pull the thing, they would launch into the air, and they caused so much damage, so much terror, that they were recalled. They did get rebooted, I think, in 2002, and I remember having just the castle, and I would pretend it was my My Little Pony castle, but I never had a Sky Dancer. And honestly, I think it's better if I didn't, if they were like knocking kids' eyes out, causing wounds. But they had their own TV show that is kind of iconically bad. And then we have, by Yes, we have Secret Princess / Princess of the Flowers. And these were moon-sized dolls that were kind of locked inside this flower. Some came in like castle shapes. And they would come with a key and you could unlock them. It looks like some of them even spinned around when you unlock them. So you can see that the 90s toys have a lot of interactive kind of bonus features. They're not just dolls, they're not just fashion dolls. Now we're in the 2000s. Of course, the 2000s and 2001, and they're still going today, is Bratz. I have a Bratz here. Bratz was designed by an ex-Mattel designer named, I have my notes here, Carter Bryant. Now he was, I don't know if he had a vendetta against Mattel or anything, but he went to MGA and he said, I have this new line that will be a competitor to Barbie. And it was a huge competitor. It almost knocked Barbie out of the game. And while lots of previous dolls before were like, fashion is just what you can do, the dolls, you can dress them up. Fashion was an integral part of Bratz. They have a passion for fashion. And a lot of people did not like the Bratz when they came out. They said they were slutty. And we can talk about the negative connotations of calling a kid's toy too slutty, but I think that Bratz was a win for the sluts community. I think but of course, just like with Barbie and the Rockers, Mattel felt very threatened and they created their own knockoff called My Scene. And this came out a year after Bratz. They're essentially Barbie bodies with Bratz heads. I used to think that they were the same line when I was younger. But Barbie was a character. She was a character in the main lineup. So just like in Barbie and the Rockers, they can't do anything without their girl Barbie. And who's next? Oh, this is another iconic 2000s doll, also made by Mattel. What's her face? Now, what's her face? She had like a dry erase body, and she came with these markers, and she came with a wig. So you could change out her hair, you could draw on her face and wipe it off. I think they're quite cute. They're very 2000s. I worry about the staining. Often dolls that have like a draw on them gimmick get stains. They're not quite cleanable. And now we're in the early 2000s, no, 2010s, sorry. Of course, we have Monster High. I wish I had a Monster High doll to show you, but unfortunately, these dolls are crazy popular and people love to fight over them. So Monster High is iconic. It was made by Mattel in 2010 by designer Gareth Sander. And he was inspired to make Monster High because one day he was out with his nieces and they went into Hot Topic and all they wanted to wear was these alternative clothes, like goth, scene, emo, those kinds of clothes. And he thought, well, this is what girls actually want to wear. They don't want to wear it. Not all of them want to wear like the pink fluffy stuff that Barbie was advertising at the time. They want to wear alternative clothing. So he made Monster High, and they are all the children of famous monsters. Like there's Dracula, daughter of Dracula, Frankenstein, daughter of Frankenstein, and they're excellent quality. They're like a #1 choice for customizers to use because their bodies and their faces are such excellent quality and mold. But they're very controversial. Like I said, everyone loves to fight over these dolls. They're scalpers. Nobody likes any of the reboots. They just rebooted it. So people love to fight over these dolls, and they're so hard to get. Then we have Novi Stars in 2012 to 2014 by MGA. Novi Stars, they were kind of like a little bit, during this time, Monster High made such a splash that everyone was trying to make their own Monster High. Like Hasbro came out with Equestria Girls, which is like My Little Pony High School, and MGA came out with Novi Stars. And they're like alien girls attending an alien high school. And these are super cute because each one of them has a different gimmick. Like some of them glowed in the dark, some of them have LED eyes, some of them have snow globe legs with liquid and glitter in them, which I think are awesome. And then in 2019, we got MGA released LOL OMG, or Outrageous Millennium Girls. And during the mid-2010s, a bunch of toy companies began producing these little surprise boxes because that's the hype. But then, of course, the popularity of surprise things have started declining. And so all these toy companies decided to make spin-offs to replace their surprise toys based off those. So this is a LOL OMG is a spin-off of LOL Surprise, which are like these little ugly baby things. I hate them. But I have one here. These girls are surprisingly excellent quality. You would think for a surprise toy spin-off, they would be a little less quality, but they're incredibly diverse. They're incredibly high quality. I don't have all of her accessories here, but this is Moonlight BB, and she has a bunch of accessories. She came in like this little box that doubles as a playset. They're super nice. But we will see a few more surprise toy spin-off lines. And now we're in the 2020s. In 2020, Moose Toys released Fail Fix, which are, their gimmick is that they are a makeover doll. So as you can see, they start off ugly and horrible. And I don't really know how they work, but somehow like that little face mask they come with, you put it on and somehow their hair becomes gorgeous and beautiful and now they can go outside. So there was another line that kind of copied this. It's being cut off, unfortunately. But it was called, I think it was called Glow Up Toys, and it was made by a different company, and they had the same gimmick. Next, oh man, I messed it up.
To the PowerPoint itself.
Okay, next, another spin-off of a surprise toy. In 2020, MGA released Rainbow High, which is unrelated to Monster High or Ever After High. It was just kind of late to the high game. but here they are. I have them right here. They're oh so amazing quality. They're also in the 2010s, the idea of poop and puke went less from a boys' toy thing to a girls' toy thing. Yeah, so somehow these Rainbow High dolls were a spinoff from Poopsie Slime Surprise. So yeah, you can kind of see in this picture the little slime people, the little poop people, down by their bigger, better, more gorgeous counterparts. And these girls, they are a little more expensive for kind of an in-store doll, but they come with several outfits. They're very high quality. I think they're catering more to the adult fans now, but it's kind of amazing they came from the Poop Your Pants line. And then in 2022, this year, MGA, as you can see, MGA is on the top of their game. They released Mermaids. And Mermaids. I think there was some controversy that they reused the face folds, but I couldn't find anything on it, so that's been erased. But their tails changed color. Recently, there was a doll who kind of like Novi Stars had a liquid tail, and she was in a liquid car that drove around, which I thought was really fun. But unfortunately, at the same time that Mermaids released, Spin Master released one of their only doll lines, Mermaid High, also a high line. But they were completely destroyed by Mermaids because even though they were super cute, they just did not have the level of quality. They didn't have that advertising. They actually completely erased one of their main characters because she was too alternative. So the Mermaids wasn't doing that. So Mermaid High just ended like last month, unfortunately. But they were really cute. So you can kind of see the evolution of dolls. This is just kind of a beginning. In 1590, we have dolls like this, the Pandoras. And in 2018, we have this unicorn that poops its pants when you feed it. So dolls really have changed. Please know that they're drinking poop-themed smoothies. Yeah. So no, but I do know they have a music video. It's so good. I have seen the video where like it's the unicorns that. Yeah. Really like an animated unicorn like poopsie. Oh my God, yeah, it's really gross. I don't know what girl wants to play with the poop. Leave that to the boys. But yeah, open discussion. Is there any dolls you like that I didn't mention? What don't you like about the evolution of dolls? Do you think that dolls need more poop? Yeah. All right, Raven.
I have one question. You mentioned that in the progression of dolls, they were catered to little girls out of moms and that's
yeah.
That the parents didn't want to buy dolls. They didn't want to buy them because their children already had some authority. They thought that the demographic bought all of these gem things. I have a question. Did you talk about them?
No, I did not. But it is
Exactly what happened.
yeah, it's interesting though with the baby doll thing because there's still lots of baby dolls being produced, and I have thoughts about that. But I'm glad that we have more fashion dolls than baby dolls now. Yeah.
Let me take this around so I can see the audience. And if you want to share these dolls on the Zoom
Yes, I
too.
also have my lovely horses here because I don't have a doll from like every era, but I do almost have a pony from every era. So you can kind of see how the materials have changed. Like the 80s ponies are made out of very soft vinyl and they're made out of absolute awful quality. Like this is Posy. Her cutie mark and her mane used to be pink and it's turned completely white and she has never been in the sun. So it is just slowly turned into white. A lot of things, yeah. But another thing, I don't know if this ever happened with any other 80s toys, but with My Little Pony, I know that Hasbro had a bunch of leftover plastic, but they didn't have enough to just make one kind of pony. So they put all these different colors of plastic together And then they made a bunch of ponies. They just threw a bunch of dye in there, all these different colors, and they made ponies. So you can see on this posy, on her neck, there's an orange spot, and that is called a regrind, where the colors from the old plastic they matched together are coming through the new dye. And there's no way you can fix this. You can't put like acne cream on it. The only fix is to paint over it. So Hasbro was like choosing the worst quality materials to make this face. Like these are like 2002 is generation 3. They're a bit harder. You can see they're getting harder and harder and smaller. And this is the newest one. She's not a brushable, but she's a posable. So you can kind of see the evolution of materials and toys through the ponies because there's been so many generations.
Are you done with the deck, bro? It's hit screen.
Yeah. I'm just open to questions.
Okay, so we're gonna stop sharing and go to Holly. We have a question in the chat as well. So Holly, coming your way.
My question is, I mean, my parents were on board with Gem. My dad was a roadie. They were cool. But I collected Monster High, and parents thought they were so ugly. Like parents would actively be, because I would be looking at the dolls and just, oh my God, these are ugly. So I was almost like counseling the parents about like why these were. So I just was wondering if you guys knew from your parent, like, what was the parent reception of Gem other than the size? Because I feel like there was also a backlash about the way they looked, like the hair colors and things like
That's
that.
scary.
Yeah, a lot of times, especially like what I said, well, there's a lot I can say about more alternative fashion dolls that aren't all pink and sparkly. Not to say that dolls that are pink and sparkly are bad. I love them, but a lot of alternative fashion dolls get a lot more hate for being scary or like anti-Christian, satanic. I don't know much about the backlash because it has, because I was not there. I can imagine that parents were like, oh, she's a Satanist. I can imagine that. But I know with Monster High, like what you were saying, parents were afraid of the Monster Highs. That actually resulted in a reboot in 2016, where they made the faces very cute and more Barbie-like, and they kind of took away their fierceness, which has happened again in the 2022 reboot that just came out. They have made them cute again. They have forgotten their roots, and they've forgotten that girls want to dress alternatively. But I know with Mermaid High, they had the one slightly alternative character. A lot of toy companies nowadays think alternative is like putting one safety pin on a black skirt. But there was this, I forget her name, in Mermaid High, there was a girl wearing a black skirt with one safety pin. And they erased her. She was one of the main 5 characters, and she has not returned for the next lines. They've completely erased her from the show and from the lines. She was just too edgy. But I'm not sure how people thought about the Gems. Maybe someone else. Is there any chat questions?
Yeah, there's a chat question. I think someone wanted to know what you, if you knew more about any dolls of color, like kind of the dolls that any in your research, fresh dolls and other doll lines that are really focused on people of color.
Yes, I it's kind of interesting that there hasn't been a lot of lines just about people of color. I do know, I should have my Barbie book, but I do know in the 90s that Mattel produced a line that was just women of color. That was really cool. I forget their names, but it was yeah. She was one of Barbie's friends, but they gave her her own line, and that lasted a couple years. I know that people of color really like that line, but of course they canceled it. There was another line, I think in the 2010s, that was kind of like Project MC Squared, where I think they came with like little projects. I think I remember their logo. It's like kind of like the Barbie logo. It's a silhouette of a face. And that was all color. They were super pretty, but they were also canceled, which is such a shame. But I think that our just a moment. I think that the best lines for diversity nowadays is LOL, OMG. I think the majority of their dolls are people of color. And then I have noticed in stores that it's really interesting, like cloth doll line that is people wearing like the traditional like African fashions, and I think those are super pretty. Yeah, but there isn't a lot of just people of color. I think we need more of that. I think we need more designers of color in the toy industry.
Agreed.
I was just gonna say, what you were just talking about with the cloth doll, I think it's called Harper Yvonne. And it's all like, here's a picture of it for, and they have a few of them. So there's like also this one. They're very cute and they're all like handmade and linen. So yeah.
Is it a Black-owned company as well? Do you
Yes,
know?
yes. It's
Okay.
I think it's called. It's the owners are named Cynthia and Catherine. Here's a picture of them there. And like
that's
on the
great.
back of the doll, they have like a story about them. But yeah, they were basically focused on.
Yeah, and I just remember there was a baby doll line that was called like Perfectly Me or something like that. And those were all women of color dolls, babies of color. So there are lines that exist, but there's not enough of them. TJ, yes.
Well, I was just gonna add to, on that topic, I think that was another reason that the Bratz kind of took off as well as they did too, because like each character kind of had their own complexion, so there was a lot more variety, and I think that was something that drew a lot of younger kids to them. You know, of course, then the parents not liking them also makes them more popular too, right?
I think also Integrity Toys started out as a doll line for people of color. They had Janae as their main doll, and so the ones who make current Gem, they're a Black-owned company, and they still feature a lot of people of color in their lines.
All right. Leah.
I wanted to make a comment also about inclusivity and regarding Monster High. They had a character in a wheelchair, which I thought was amazing. I loved that, and I love that their whole like mantra is just like be weird, be who you are, like whoever you are, you can just be yourself. I thought that was such a beautiful message.
Yeah, that's something that people really like about Monster High.
Yeah. And then even now there's like the trans doll for I'm trying to remember her name, but they just Barbie just released that doll. Yeah, for sure. And so it's really great that we're seeing like the progression, and I think that's wonderful. So.
Yeah, like we've gone from gay blob and closet blobs to now there was actually a Bratz release this June about two of the main characters, and they like confirmed that they were dating, and one of them was wearing a non-binary pin, and that was really cool to see. That now we have like big name brands like Bratz and Barbie, Monster High, like straight up confirming that there are trans and queer and gay characters in their lives, and it's not hidden, it's not something people have to headcanon. It's out there for real, and people can go in the stores and buy a doll that's like them. That's really awesome.
I was wondering what everybody thinks about Barbie's, you know, switch to keep up with some of those like the different body shapes.
It was like all long girls. Now, like there was just a switch one day, and now they're diverse, which I love. But I do think I don't know what inciting incident caused that, but the Fashionistas line is really great. They have a bunch of different body types. They have boy dolls. They have, I think they have some sort of gay doll, queer doll.
They have dolls.
Like there was not binary, you could make a girl or boy.
Yeah, that was called My
Yeah. They also have the dolls with like vitiligo, like skin conditions, and with prosthetic legs and no hair. Like those are the kinds that I always like too. So I've got a lot of those fashionistas.
And I love that Barbie also makes like they did, I think it was called like there's been a lot of years of influential like people in history. And I feel like the Howard Hillary comes with Braille on the block. And I was like blown away. Like I was so moved by that. It was really an experience.
Yeah, it's really important for everyone to find a doll that looks like them or has something in common with them. And you just wouldn't see that in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Like you got a doll in a cardboard box wearing a paper bag and you were happy with it. But now a lot of things have changed. Like I know a lot of people with the packaging, people want exciting packaging. Like these dolls here, this LOL and the Rainbow High, they come with stands, they come with several outfits. We demand a lot more of dolls, and I think it's only reasonable that we change up the diversity with dolls. So not only are we getting higher and higher quality products, higher and higher quality dolls, we also get dolls that represent more people. And so everyone can feel included collecting dolls or playing with dolls. Because I'm a collector. I get a doll and I put her on a shelf and I let her collect dust. But there are kids in the world, surprisingly, that catch toys. And I think it's important for them to have, they grow up with dolls and then they can tell their kids, oh, this is my doll. Like, that's what I like about the original American Girl dolls. I know that they're more doing like pre-packaged, go to the store and buy it things. But when I was younger, American Girl was, you go to the store, you go to the website and you pick out the traits on the doll that you have. I never got to do it. I was deprived. But that's what the original American Girl was. I think it was, they had the story.
Also, if you're on Zoom, you have a question, just put it in the chat. And
Yes.
the chat's not enabled for everyone.
I can keep talking for 7 more hours, so keep the questions.
Okay,
Yes.
we have a rebuttal from the mother of
No,
the
it's not
presenter.
for rebuttal, but I was gonna ask you about the American Girl dolls, because those were in the mall. Are those things still out there? And are those
I'm not
considered-
sure.
Are they still in the mall?
Yeah, so
Oh, you buy them?
no, like there used to be American Girl stores. Like, I remember I went to a birthday party there once, and it was, I don't know if they would make the doll in front of you or they had it like in the back. But you would choose like, oh, I want a doll with brown hair and brown eyes and this skin color and wearing this outfit, kind of like Build-A-Bear. But I think American Girl's been running since the 90s, so I think alongside the like making your own dolls, they've had like the story dolls that they come out with the books and the movies for. And then those are the pre-packaged ones they have in like Target. That's what they have right now. I don't know if they have those make your own stores. I don't know if they have that.
But those are like more baby dolls.
They're not supposed to be like baby. They're supposed to be like little girl. Like,
Like a person.
yeah, they're made for like girls ages like 5 to 10. So they're supposed to look like a girl in that age zone. But I feel like a lot of girls do treat them like baby dolls. Like they make carriages for them and stuff like that. So, but they're supposed to be representations of like younger girls. Yes, Arthur.
But with that, I mean, with the American Girl, they also have like the historical dolls. so you
Yeah,
have,
that's
like,
what I'm talking about. It's like the story. What the
Yeah,
story
yeah,
is. Which has a lot of interesting diversity there. I remember there was an American Girl that was, it's almost funny because like the white American story girls are like, I have to go live in the castle. How will I adjust? And then the black American girls are like, I escaped and I went into this slave underground railroad. And I'm like, oh, okay. But yeah, but they have, I don't know if they do the make your own American Girls anymore, but I do know they do like the Girl of the Year. They have like the story girl that fits the story, like the little book in the movie they made.
I have another one.
Yes.
I do remember when the Bratz dolls came out. I had a child at that time, and I thought they were cool myself, but I did think they were slutty.
Yes.
And so I wanted to hear if anyone else like thought that they were, because I remember thinking
Was this based on their
attracted-
behavior, the doll's behaviors, like their
just the way they had
promiscuity?
huge lips. Yeah.
Oh, really?
And I thought they were cute and I was attracted to them. And I remember thinking, oh, I'm going to buy this for my child. But then I was like, oh God, like, what is my husband going to say? And then my mom's going to come over and say, like, it's so I just wanted to hear, like, I wonder why I thought that.
Well,
Why-
the idea of calling a kid's toys slutty, I don't mean to shame it.
Is this a Bratz
That's
doll,
a
right?
Bratz.
She's not wearing an original outfit. I got her secondhand, so someone else dressed her.
Let's get it in the light, but yeah.
So, I think it's Jasmine or something, I don't know their names. But the idea of calling a kid's toys slutty and, not a shady one, I think it was definitely perpetrated by the media. I don't think anyone would have thought it if it wasn't for like just news reporters saying it. But the thing about calling them slutty is that you say, you give a girl or whoever a toy and you say, this doll that you love and you are looking up to, and they're supposed to be a representation of an adult woman that you want to grow up and be like. They're a slut, and that's negative. And if you want to be friends with someone like that, if you want to look like that when you're older, if you meet someone like that, then that's bad. And you should not, like, you should be treating someone who dresses like this or looks like this badly, like all the adults are saying to the kids. So even if like, maybe if there is a doll, even if she was wearing like a one-piece thong, I would not call her slutty because I don't think it's right to be calling a kid's toy that you're giving to a kid and saying, this is, but kids, whether you say it or not, will see as a friend or a role model. You can't, I don't think you should be able to give a negative connotation to a kid's toy. unless it's with malicious intent, like the toy company decided, we're gonna distribute the evil doll that try to make your kids gay. And,
It's grooming.
yeah. Yeah, but I don't like it when people call them like too.
It sounds like Mattel maybe had something to do with the slutty campaign, maybe,
Yeah,
right?
slutty. I don't like calling them too risque or too mature, because they're, in the end, they're a kid's toy. I don't think, yeah, kids,
Inanimate object.
I don't, like, kids don't realize things are like mature or slutty or too risque until adults start telling them. So if there's like a 5-year-old kid who gets a Bratz doll, they're not saying, oh, her lips are huge. She looks like a prostitute. They're not saying that. They're saying, this is my friend, my playmate, my role model. They don't want, like, and when you start saying these negative things about their friend, playmate, role model, that's when they start seeing that this type of dressing, looking like that, is inherently bad, which it isn't. So you shouldn't say that. Yeah. Raven.
I absolutely love this talk. I played with dolls my whole life, so this is a fantastic expose on the history of them. Absolutely wonderful job. But I had a thought about the categorization that some people give to dolls, like you're saying they're to this or to that. My follow-up question to that person would be, compared to what? It's to something based on what you think it should be. Why is what you think the standard?
Yeah,
And
I think a lot of people were comparing Bratz like Monster High to Barbie, because I know a lot of people call just dolls in general Barbies. So they're like, what's with this new Barbie? Why does she look like that? But I think I don't think any dolls are free from criticism, because even Barbie is kind of an insult now. If you call someone Barbie, you're insulting them, because people see Barbie as like, she's addicted to plastic surgery. She's so skinny. She's, which I do think there is problems with Barbie, like being skinny, white, blonde doll. She's like what everyone holds as like the doll, the fashion doll. I think there is a problem with that. And I think that's what Barbie Fashionistas was trying to repair when they started that line. But I do think when Bratz came out, a lot of people were saying like, why doesn't she look like Barbie? Why? And maybe a lot of people were saying that about the skin tones too. Maybe like maybe people didn't like that there was a lot of diversity in skin tones. Either they were kind of pushing that onto the dolls. But even Barbie has been criticized for being too something, or too this, to that, which what I said is bad, because girls don't recognize, kids who play with these dolls, they don't recognize that these things are a problem until adults start saying they are.
Something about, we have a comment from Bell Pepper in the chat. Bell Pepper, do you want to come off mute and say what you're saying in the chat, or you want me just to read it?
No, I can say it. Hey, Harloe, great job. Are you going to put me on the mic?
Yeah.
Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Hey, Minneapolis. No, so I think part of the issue is that we're projecting our own social norms on people's bodies. It's what we do constantly. And like, just think about how everyone here relates to the gem dolls. So much of it is our own way of processing our own understanding of ourselves against what culture expects us to do. So I think when we call dolls like slutty, I think it's more revealing of our own attitudes towards sex and sexuality, instead of like what plastic molding, paint, and fabric is on this doll.
Latest fashion. Every doll has the latest makeup and latest hair. But if we look deeper than that, the diversity in dolls, the variety of skin colors in dolls, the personalities and backstories of dolls, that's what we're really showing as a reflection of people. So it's like what Bell Pepper said, it's more telling of ourselves what we call dolls something, 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 than it is the designers or the children's or even the parents' fault. It's what we are saying about those dolls that resemble real people, because no matter how outrageous dolls look, how crazy they are, there is someone out there that might resemble that doll. And we do critique, when we critique dolls for looking a certain way, we are critiquing that entire category of people in real life. Yes, Georgie.
I have two questions. Sorry. Do you know, or does anyone in the room know, if the Gem dolls were the first ones to have colored hair, brightly colored hair? Because I remember when I was a kid, that's the first time I saw that. She-Ra had it with the She-Ra dolls?
Yeah, Glimmer had pink hair. Yeah.
Oh,
They were like this big though, right? They were like.
I don't know. I was asking.
Just barely, but yeah.
Strawberry shortcakes, yeah.
Like, you knew that they were like
A berry.
fancy because they lived in like a.
A strawberry house.
Even Jem was like the first like real life person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember.
Sorry, I think with the Flatsy dolls in the 60s, and some of them had kind of crazy colored hair. I saw a picture online recently, and someone was saying that these old Flatsy dolls look like Zaz with green hair. You know what I mean? So I think they've been
Maybe,
around.
yeah.
You
I
know?
have to look at
I
that
don't know
because
if
that's
that's
an interesting question.
For the follow-up.
I had a follow-on question. Do you know how paper dolls fit into the fashion doll?
Paper dolls. Oh, if I'm gonna think about it, paper dolls have been around since like the Victorian era. And I think they were like a cheaper alternative to like the porcelain dolls because they're just paper. And with the printing press and stuff getting more and more widely available for companies, I think they were like, let's make a fun toy for kids. And I love paper dolls. I think they're super cute and they're super easy to make or find online. You just print them out and you make them. So yeah. Someone should make a gem paper doll.
Oh, yeah.
There is a gem.
Dolls,
Uh-huh.
in the 60s, 70s, and this one does have pink hair, like Jem.
Oh, nice.
Maybe that's our answer. Flatsy, the original gem.
And the original ideal body shape, flat.
And I was just gonna comment, circling back to the Bratz dolls, like, one thought I have is like, maybe they didn't do themselves any favors by calling them Bratz, because what parent is gonna wanna buy a doll that their kid looks up to that's called a brat?
Right.
Like a parent's gonna be like, no.
It's only 3 letters away from sluts too, you know? It's a Z.
Like, yeah, I mean, even if you don't, look at that, because my memory of is like, people saw them as kind of like, not slutty, but kind of trashy.
Snotty and trashy, yeah, like
Mr.
bratty.
Baby.
You see the very high quality movies they produce, then they live a very fashionable lifestyle. And they're rock angels and they're fairies and they're well, actually,
Yeah.
the name of the brats is actually kind of funny to me because I never had any brats until recently. But whenever someone would call me a brat, like, because I was an annoying kid, they're like, "Oh, you're such a brat." I'm like, "Oh, you're calling me the very fashionable, stylish doll? Thank you." Yeah, so I didn't know brat was an insult until like I was older. So perception.
That's a good point.
I have another question.
Yes, Georgie.
What do you think is the future of dolls? Like we were saying yesterday, how cool it was that like a tape came with the Gem dolls, like, and then now those things spin and poke your eyeball out. But what do you think would be the future of dolls? Like
Well,
more tech?
Well, what I'm noticing is that with the surprise tour, I can't really tell if they're going down or coming up because all these dolls, these two are spin-offs of surprise dolls, and now they're the main line. So I feel like we're past the boot era. I feel like we're moving past that. I feel like dolls are gonna get. I feel like we're just gonna see a lot more dolls become more and more collector's items because these dolls, LOL, OMG, and Rainbow High, they're creating those lines that were originally meant for children. They're making collector exclusive dolls that are like $100. And these dolls, they come with stands and different outfits. Like, if we're being honest, what little girl or little kid playing with a doll is gonna want the stand? Because the stand is for displaying the dolls. So I feel like we're subconsciously going more and more towards dolls becoming a collector's thing again. Yeah, because everyone who played with like Monster High and stuff like that were kids, and now they're adults and they can afford collector's dolls. So I feel like we're getting the more and more kids who are being born are becoming iPad kids, just staring at that iPad all day. And I feel like unfortunately that we're getting less and less demand for parents buying dolls. And I feel like more people, the more dolls that are coming out are catering more and more to adult fans and people like me who are still kids, but I'm becoming older and older. And I like stalk the doll websites for the new releases. Like no kid is doing that. No little kid is gonna do that unless they have really cool parents. But yeah. Yes.
Just a comment too on what George is asking about. One thing I noticed is kind of the Funko Pop and this the big eyes. Like that's the thing I see that's happening always, like with these dolls, but also integrity with the onset of like 3D printing. The dolls come apart and you can print your doll at home, put pieces together, like kind of thing. I think it's kind of like a future thing that I'm seeing where you can kind of change out the hands and have long fingernails or short fingernails. And so kind of the components of a doll being able to come apart. Like
I mean,
those.
yeah, this girl, her hands.
So it's easy to take the clothes on and off, but also you can if this part breaks, you can just print it out and replace it. So I see that as a technology thing from integrity. Like when something's wrong, you send it the part to them and they'll send you the part back. But they keep you used to only be able to take off like the head and the arm, but now you can take off the wrist and this part of the arm and this part of the arm. So it's like a 3D printer like technology thing too.
Yeah, that's really cool. I that would be great technology because I know a lot of collectors when they go into the stores, they like search every doll on the shelf for the one with the least imperfections. And even then you can still get a doll who's like hand melted in the packaging or something. So it'd be great if the companies could offer like, send this hand back and we'll get you a new hand that was just easily available to produce.
You think that'll allow for more customization?
Yes, one thing that I'm always on the fence about is custom people, like people who make custom dolls, because on one hand, I love seeing the art and I love seeing what people can like take this doll from like the thrift store and make it into something completely new and completely even higher quality. But at the same hand, I'm a collector, a preservationist, and I want all those dolls to get like preserved and like put on a shelf and never touched again. So I feel like I'm like a little bit nervous when I see people like destroying My Little Ponies and like rare brats to make new ones. So I think it would be better if, like, I know Hasbro for a long time, they produced like blank My Little Ponies that were like completely white. They didn't have any hair. You could put your own hair in. And that was good because then people didn't have to destroy their own ponies. So I feel like if toy companies like Integrity or like Mattel or MGA or Hasbro could like produce more blank dolls, like this is the blank Monster High. She's completely white. She has no hair. Do whatever you want with her. I feel like that would be great. So we wouldn't have to like destroy a bunch of possibly rare dolls because a bunch of customizers aren't fans of the doll lines. They don't know what they have. They don't know what they're taking apart to make their own custom doll. So it'd be great if toy companies could like mass produce blank dolls on like the 3D printer or something, and then have that available for people who don't want to take apart pre-existing dolls.
Good question. Where do you stand on the Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head gender neutral?
Okay, this is a huge misunderstanding. Huge. People do not understand. Mr. Potato Head and Mrs. Potato Head still exist. It is the overarching brand that is just called Potato Head. Okay, Mr. Potato Head and Mrs. Potato Head still exist. The brand is called Potato Head. It makes more sense because they got all these potato heads. It can't be just named Mr. Potato Head. He can't get all the credit. Yeah, but I'm all for the non-binary Potato Head. Their name is just Head. Yeah, it's just a potato. Like, I want to have a cross-dressing Mr. Potato Head. I can have that. You can't stop me. Yeah.
So I think we're at time.
Oh no, there's no more chat questions. I want to keep going.
This all day with these folks. Yeah, Kelsey's talking about making Gem and
Oh,
Shannon
that's
paper dolls, but-
awesome.
and there was a paper doll book of them, and they're really cool. But we should keep that going. Yeah, so I think we should at this point, given a successful run.
If you can't take it like the day, you may do so. You can't take them. I'll notice it.
We're gonna move them over and let me grab the mic really quick. So for Zoom folks, we're gonna be back in 10 minutes to start Raven's panel, Raven and Christine's panel in the same room. And I'm gonna put you on mute and turn off the video, and Harloe's gonna move her dolls to the other table. And we'll get started soon, so we'll see you in a minute. Thanks for being here.
Great job, Harloe.